Oh, wow. All right, we're on air already. And that was, that usually takes a few seconds. I don't know what the deal was with that. But here we are. And wait, let me get my guitar and stuff. There's fully prepared to start this thing as usual. Here we are. Maybe I'll close the door too. This is David Rovics, and you are listening to the David Rovics Show, and it looks like it's coming through all right. But if anybody's on the chat room there, feel free to let me know if it sounds good. Why does it say? It says volume control is muted, but the mic is making noise. Okay. I don't know. Did something just change? Was I being heard before and not now? Anyway, it appears it was working. Maybe I just couldn't hear anything, but that's okay because I'm not trying to. So this is this particular show is a guided tour of my new album, All the News That's Fit to Sing, and I'm just going to play tracks from the new album and in order. And yeah, cool. Reiko says it sounds good, and so does Mark there in Oklahoma, and Donnie says hi from Hong Kong and didn't say it sounded bad, so probably that's a good sign. And good to see people out there. If anybody else wants to join the chat room is there and already includes folks from Hong Kong and Oklahoma, and could include you. And also, this is basically it's there's Paula from Australia. Oh, good. That's nice to have three countries and 3 continents represented. It makes me feel loved and like there's a point. Hannah, hello, Hannah. So I said Australia, Paula. Maybe there's a delay, but so we as I and I know for anybody who's not in the chat room, for me to interact with the chat room orally like this is maybe awkward. So I'll try to keep it down, but. And of course this show will be archived and you can listen later if you want, and in which case the chat room stuff will make even less sense. So as I'm going with this guided tour of my new album, I am also very much interested in any questions that anybody may have or comments on any of the tracks or any other aspect of the album, and I can discuss and answer and talk about those things as I'm introducing the different songs. Before going on to the new album, I thought I'd sing a new song that I wrote a few days ago, as well as a song that I sang yesterday at the demonstration here in Portland against Israel's continuing atrocities in Gaza, I know that some of you there in the chat room and out there listening were at protests yesterday. Some are going today, others on Friday, but around the world there have been protests against Israel's latest murderous atrocities against the Palestinian people. And for the protest yesterday, I worked up an acoustic version of a song. I'd always been telling people that that the song only worked with the band, but I think that was more an excuse just not to work it up again acoustic, because it sounds just fine acoustic, and I don't know what I was thinking. And I don't think I'd ever sung it at a protest. It went over very well, if I don't say so myself. Yeah, Donnie mentioned she was at a protest in Hong Kong yesterday. I saw some pictures. Good crowd. We had a lot more people in Hong Kong than we had in Portland. Of course, you have an embassy there, I assume, a Israeli embassy. So if that's the case, it makes it feels like there's a little more point to having a protest. But there's always a point. How it is that I dare to take a side. You say I loathe myself for pointing out that you have lied. You say it's tribal warfare, but I disagree. For the dynamics of the situation are not difficult to see. On one side is the fighter jet, on the other side the stone. One side is the slave, on the other is the throne. For the many there are checkpoints, while foreign soldiers rule the street. For one side there is victory, but the people don't accept defeat. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It'll come on the day the tanks return to Tel Aviv. On one side there is hunger and bulldozed olive trees. On the other is the army, ruling by decrees. Caterpillars maul the streets, destroy whole city blocks, while children swallow shrapnel for the crime of throwing rocks. Fences are erected around the towns they flatten, and Herzl's own fanatics sleep on sheets of satin. And they water their plantations, drilling ever deeper wells, while the displaced children of the hopeless are filled with bullet shells. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It'll come on the day the settlers return to Tel Aviv. On one side there's the Mossad, rounding up the men thrown in jail with no trial, being tortured once again. On the other there is rage, helplessness and fear, and a growing realization that another Holocaust is near. On the outside there are prisons, inside detainees being stripped of their humanity, beaten naked to their knees. Outside ghetto prison walls there are stormtroopers all around. Inside the hungry people yearn for liberated ground. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It'll come on the day the jail guards return to Tel Aviv. All across the world, you can hear the people say, the children of Jerusalem will be free one day. In overcrowded camps, amidst the stench of death and flies, to the suburbs of Detroit, you can hear the anguished cries. While in the land of Israel, with God ever on their side, walls and fences are constructed, papers are denied. People fight for their existence while the world turns a blinded eye. And those who should know better insist on asking why. The word you need to know is occupation, the very definition of a land without a nation. And if peace is what you're after, then let us not deceive. It'll come on the day the refugees return to Tel Aviv. I liked yesterday how people reacted to each line at the end of each settlers and jail guards and refugees. That was, I think that's what happens when you play something live. You find out what parts people are reacting to, among other things. So here in Portland, near where I live. Oh, speaking of Portland, by the way, I was just hanging out with a bunch of folks yesterday. A friend, Victor Wallace, who's editor of a wonderful journal called Socialism and Democracy from out in the Boston area. He was visiting. He and his wife Inez are visiting the West Coast, and we were hanging out here in Portland, and we visited his old friend Michael Monk, among other people. And Michael Monk wrote a fantastic book I'm looking at right now called The Portland Red Guide. And I think my next song is going to be based on that book. A wonderful history of the underbelly of Portland, which a history book that should be written, a guide that should be written about every city in the world. But here in Portland, it's certainly not all positive. That's for sure. And one of the many negative trends happening here is gentrification, with no laws to control the gentrifiers or protect the people who can't afford the rising rents or any of that stuff, because it's neoliberal free trade Oregon. Contrary to whatever mythology is out there about the state being run by progressives, it's not, and never has been, to my knowledge. And I guess depending on how you define the term, but if you define it the way I do, it ain't. And the neighborhood, one of the neighborhoods that's being most rapidly and horrifically gentrified is this neighborhood where I live, Division Street, which is the main drag near here that has cafes and stuff on it. And it used to be a nice street with a couple of cafes and a couple of Thai restaurants and a hardware store and various things, along with the houses and stuff, and a bicycle repair shop. Now it's full of yuppie restaurants. And a place where you can buy a pint of ice cream for $9. It is damn good ice cream, I must admit, but man, that's expensive, and that's what the town's turning into, and it inspired a walk down Division, and Oregon Public Broadcasting's recent praising of the development in Division neighborhood gave rise to me writing a song. I've moved out of 3 cities because I couldn't pay the rent. Folks like me weren't welcome, so I packed it up and went. It's always the same story. Find a place I want to be, and soon enough I'm joined by all the other refugees. Then watch the websites warble, this is the place to hang. Hey, check out Division Street, it's the sweetest thing since Tang. Then watch the millionaires come in, buy a luxury hotel, sipping coffee on the sidewalk, saying, isn't this place swell? Rents are going up, and the neighborhood's going down. Here in gentrification town. See the families leave the city, watch how they accept their fate. Accept the ones who had the timing right and bought some real estate. The ones who had the timing and the ones who had the credit. The ones who paid attention to whoever it was who said it. This is a nation that won't suffer utopians or fools. He who has the gold rules. He who has the gold, he who bought the stock, he who is the landlord who owns your block. Rents are going up and the neighborhood's going down. Here in gentrification town. They say you can't blame the yuppies, they're just responding to the will of the market and the strength of the US dollar bill. But the dollar's only strong if you have some to your name. Otherwise you're on the business end of the game. The end that just stays home cause they can't afford the show. The end that has to pack their things and find a place to go, the new hip place to be. For a little while then, the wrecking balls move in and change the sound again. Rents are going up and the neighborhood's going down. Here in gentrification town, the rents are going up and the neighborhood's going down. Here in gentrification town, gentrification town. Does it? What's the music sound like out there? I mean, I'm all done with singing songs, but I've just been told that the music doesn't sound so good on somebody's computer, and maybe is that just because of the quality of the stream on this thing, or what? Tell me what you're experiencing out there in the chat room, if this is sounding good or not. But either way, the album will sound good because it's all, different way to work. Oh, it's crackly. Paula says it's crackly. I wonder if the albums are going to be crackly too. I'm always thinking, now I'm going to buy a new computer, but I don't quite get around to it. So I'm gonna just load up the new album here, and then I'll be on my way to playing the new album for you and talking about it. And I was going to load it up before, but I somehow didn't start preparing for the show soon enough. But let's see if I can click and talk at the same time. So far, it's not working all that well. But so the title of the new album is All the News That's Fit to Sing, and as many of you may already be aware, you can download it for free on davidrovics.com. You'll see a link up top, which will take you to my Bandcamp site, which is Bandcamp. What is it? davidrovics.bandcamp.com, and that will that takes you to the Bandcamp site where you can stream or download the new album for free. And so anyway, I was just, and now I'm getting distracted reading the chat room because I was curious what the sound was like on that singing, and it seems there's mixed response in terms of the sound. It sounds like Patrick McGuire sounded good here. Dropped the stream. Dropped this Steam. You mean stream to 50% and up on the PC? I'm not sure what that means. It's wonderful technical jargon, but I'm not sure what it means. It sounds like a gain level thing that you're talking about there, but I'm not sure. But I like it anyway. It sounds good. And Paula says I should play the song in the gentrification song in Austin because Austin, the gentrification in Austin is like a massive epidemic. It's of just biblical proportions. It's incredible. To the point where the city is just becoming unlivable. I mean, it's massive. It's a massive, sprawling city of basically uncontrolled development with, And so anyway, moving up. So yeah, pretty much a very split reception on the singing there. Some sets, Jasek says its set was distorted. Who knows? Anyway, I'm still very much in the process of not mastering this technology. Maybe if I get a new computer, it'll all work brilliantly, magically, if it's a good one. I don't know. This is, something. Or, maybe it's just a thing about streaming, or maybe it's my my broadband signal, or who knows. But I wonder if it's the case with other internet radio shows that they spend half their time talking about how much trouble they're having broadcasting an internet radio show. I suspect this is not a unique thing. Anyway, moving on to the album, which, as I mentioned, you can download or stream for free on Bandcamp if you want to hear it as an album, which will sound better than this probably. Without all the talking in between and stuff. You are very welcome to do that. Very welcome to donate as well as subscribe on my website if you want to do that sort of thing. And support me in making more albums. So there's your commercial announcement. Now I'll move on to the album itself. All the News That's Fit to Sing, which was basically, one day, I don't know, driving around Europe, I was, last spring, I was thinking of Phil Oakes, as I often do, a wonderful songwriter who died day before my birthday in 1976, but he was busily writing fantastic songs from most of his adult life. His first album, his first sort of album on a record label was called All the News That's Fit to Sing. But there was no song called All the News That's Fit to Sing. And so I thought I should write one. And I did. And if anybody has any questions about anything on the album, let me know. But in the meantime, here is All the News That's Fit to Sing, the title track of the new album.
There's a war on for your mind, it's right there on your screen. Watch the pundits ramble on to find the terms, set the scene. Hear the pundits say this is the best that it can get. There may be room for improvement. Just stay tuned to your set. Just stay tuned to your set. They'll tell you all you need to know. If it's anything important, they'll have it on the show. There's a war on for the planet. There's a war on for your mind. The outcome of the struggle is the fate of humankind. You can drink the Kool-Aid, buy the goods that you are sold. Watch the talking heads, think the way you're told. Think the way they tell you. Hold fast to the lies or stick your finger in the wind and trust your ears and eyes. Turn off your TV or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Some democracies are tyrannies, you can hear them say, while some dictatorships are friendly. They'll tell us every day, if your passion is pro-baseball, you can surely get the score. But if you want to know what's happening, walk outside your door. See the oil train exploding, see the black smoke in the sky, see the kids under the bridge, see the limo passing by. Turn off your TV or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. It's a question for the moment, a question for the ages, for the businessmen and prisoners rattling their cages, for the businessmen and prisoners, be they lost or found upon the rising oceans or cracked dry desert ground. It's a choice that we're all faced with, or so it seems to me. I don't have all the answers, but I can guarantee, turn off your TV or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Turn off your TV or you won't learn a thing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing. Gather round, I'll give you all the news that's fit to sing.
So it sounds like that sounded all right, right? That's the feedback I've gotten so far, that sounded okay. And unlike the live stuff, which was more of a mixed experience for the listeners in terms of the quality. No, that Jacek asks if that was live, and no, I mean it wasn't live. It was that's from the album, which was basically solo acoustic, recorded in a studio near here in Portland, Oregon, at Big Red Studio in Corbett, and I just recorded a couple weeks ago, and I'm singing the harmonies. And so it is a studio recording, not recorded live, and not live right now. So it's not live in two different senses, I suppose. Although some people might call some of that. See, I'm giving you a very long answer to a short question, but some people would call it a live recording in the sense that it wasn't done with lots of splicing and dubbing and stuff like that. But so. It depends on your definition of live. Good. There's Brian in Chicago. This is my favorite thing. I think the internet, I've said this before, but I think the internet is basically evil and is destroying the world and atomizing us all further from each other, isolating us, especially Facebook, especially with Facebook's new algorithm. I think it all serves to atomize and divide the world up even further. But then on the flip side, occasionally it unites people, like in chat rooms where you can have people from all over the world having a chat. I think that's just wonderful. I wish it was all like that, but unfortunately it's not. And of course it's not going to go away, so we make the best of it. But I think it's annoying generally. But I think this chat room is lovely. Yeah, Big Red Studio, great studio. Billy Oskay being the very, very, very capable engineer and, sort of co-producer, you could say, of this CD and of many of my recent recordings in recent years. All of which you can download for free if you want to. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, I think it was a damn fine production with some great musicians and there in the studio. Anyway, moving on to track 2, TPP 101. There's these secret trade deals going on, massive secret trade deals. Apparently the World Trade Organization was too much of a democratic institution, and the powers that be in the United States thought that we needed to have free trade deals with much of the world that were less democratic than the WTO and even vaster in scale. And so they started up these two sets of negotiations around trade deals, one for the Pacific and one for the Atlantic, basically. The Pacific one notably excluding China, and the Atlantic one notably excluding Russia. Although I guess either one of them, notably excluding Russia, is the same, since Russia is on both the Pacific and the Atlantic, more or less. But so I first I've been to some protests against the TPP, mainly I guess on the Washington BC border, and then I was asked by some folks in Germany to participate in some of the roadshow kind of thing that ATTAC was organizing. ATTAC being a activist group / nonprofit or something like that, originally coming out of France, but that is active in various European countries as well as in Quebec. And ATTAC, somebody from ATTAC, I believe a wonderful musician from Bamberg, suggested that they do a tour, people speaking and playing music, specifically focusing, I think, on the cultural aspects of the TPP and TTIP negotiations, which are basically like those ACTA and SOPA and PIPA and all these things that never got voted through, but they are all included within TPP and TTIP, which is the European version of the thing. And of course, these things have not been passed yet. The negotiations, the secret negotiations, continue. But when I was asked to participate in this tour, I thought I should have a song on this subject. It's high time to have written one, and so I did, and sang it there and recorded it a couple weeks ago.
Traders and traitors, bankers and thieves are at it once again. WTO just didn't cut it, so now there's no telling when they'll pass this latest treaty from behind closed doors and win another battle in the transnational class wars. They want fast-track authority so they can get the job done right, by which they mean no discussion, don't even pretend to put up a fight, as they take from us our government's ability to regulate what happens within the borders of what they used to call the state and what they used to call democracy, the idea that people have a say in whether we should be building windmills or fracking our lives away, whether banking regulations are a good idea or not, whether the food on your kitchen table comes from a Monsanto plot, whether the poor should die or have affordable medication, whether human life is less important than your corporation, whether this world is a commons or just a free trade bill that we need about as much as we need another oil spill. So let's do like we do in the WC and flush the TPP. They say it'll help the economy, and they've said it all before. Like when they implemented NAFTA in 1994, the U.S. lost 1 million jobs. Of this there is no doubt. And in Mexico, small farmers were almost completely wiped out. And when the refugees started streaming in, they were treated just like tools in the great game of the oligarchs, the old divide and rule. Just like J.P. Morgan said, why worry, he laughed, when I can pay half the working class to kill the other half. So let's do like we do in the WC and flush the TPP. SOPA, PIPA, ACTA, they couldn't get them passed, so now they've snuck them all into TPP. Try running that one up the mast. In the back room, no one knows which corporation speaks, except when secret documents get sent to WikiLeaks. And it's only from the whistleblowers we even know it's there. One for Asia, one for Europe. Free trade everywhere. Free trade, free pollution, freedom for the billionaires. Enslavement for the rest of us, but hey, they got theirs. So let's do like we do in the WC and flush the TPP. Let's do like we do in the WC and flush the TPP.
So, and then moving on to track 3. While I was performing at a small gig in Mendocino, California, in a beautiful town in a beautiful county. Well, for the most part. I mean, some of it's logged to hell, but a lot of it is just gorgeous. In Mendocino, Northern California. And somewhere around there is where Laurel Krauss lives, and the sister of Alison Krauss, not Alison Krauss, the phenomenal musician, but Allison with 2 L's, Allison Krauss, the young woman who was among the 4 people killed in the Kent State Massacre in 1970. And she's very active trying to get justice for those killed at Kent State, and also to highlight and publicize and expose various aspects of the massacre which are generally not talked about, or not certainly not been exposed in a legal sense, like the likelihood that there were snipers involved and that were shooting, that were trying to give the troops an excuse to commit a massacre, which they did, and then proceeded to do it, I think a couple weeks later, at Jackson State University, and thus showing the basic reality that that the New Deal was that the troops could kill students if they wanted to, and that this movement had to stop. And there was so much leading up to the movement, to the massacres, in terms of the rhetoric of the politicians, such as the governor of California, Ronald Reagan, and the governor of Ohio, and Richard Nixon himself, and lots of other people that were really setting the stage for this kind of action on the part of the U.S. military. So basically, after meeting Laurel, and I gave thought to the subject and wrote this song while I was on tour in Europe recently.
There were millions of bombs falling from the sky. There were children looking up before they die. There were millions of people marching in the street, hoping that their country would meet defeat. There were military contracts, lots of dollars to be made, selling heroin and fighter jets in the arms trade. There were millions of soldiers refusing to kill. There were others taking orders directly from the hill, like the ones who were sent off to turn the campus red, who were sent to kill the students dead. There were governors talking about military rule. If they want a bloodbath, let's bring one to their school. If they want a bloodbath, this was the very phrase. That's the language that the governors were using those days. That's the way they thought, and that's exactly what they did. There were politicians talking about gunning down kids. They said the students were worse than the Nazis in the war. A quote from the governor just a few days before. The guard was sent in to turn the campus red. They were sent to kill the students dead. There was a sniper on the rooftop, ready to conspire. There were the National Guardsmen with the orders to fire. They all lined up, ready, aim, shoot. There was President Nixon in a three-piece suit. He brought the war home like he said he would. There was a whole generation who understood. There were soldiers lined up 100 meters away. A bullet in the back is the price you gotta pay. When the guard is sent in to turn the campus red, sent to kill the students dead.
After I wrote that song and recorded the song, I sent the link to Laurel, and she was sending it around and to people. Among the people who I heard from as a result of her efforts sending it around was Steve Wozniak, who donated $100 and proceeded to buy all my CDs. And I was I keep on resisting the urge to ask him if he's got any extra laptops around or something, But it just seems like the wrong question. But I need a new computer. Personal question there on Skype: do you have Irish origins? Accidentally. Well, I don't know how accidental it was, but that I do have Irish origins. Irish, English, and on one side of the family, and on the other, various parts of Eastern Europe. That's not related to the album necessarily, but it might be, so I just thought I'd include that in the show, since there was the question there in the chat room. And if anybody else has questions of any kind in the chat room, please feel free to put them in there, whether they're about the songs on the new album or anything else that you feel like talking about. And of course, you can just say anything else, doesn't have to be a question, but you know that already. So what? I gotta get some water. Track 4. Everybody has Irish in them, it says Paula. I don't know about everybody, but they certainly did get around, as you say. That's absolutely true. The British made sure that they got around. So Mudslide is the 4th track on the album, and that's about the mudslide here in the northwestern part of the U.S. and also Washington, north of Seattle, where last March a mountainside that had been very heavily logged over many decades basically just collapsed. And there had been warnings, scientific studies around this in the past 10, 15 years that were, more or less ignored and then denied by some powerful politicians that they ever existed until they're kind of proven that you actually knew that this could happen, etc. But it's a result of government corruption and corporations not being careful about the environment because they're more interested in profit. That's what killed all those people in that town in Washington.
Before the pioneers came all the way out here to set up camp, to farm, to hunt and mine. By the riverbanks, others joined their ranks and worked the land in forests, rain or shine. That's how things once were, there among the Douglas fir that blanketed the region far and wide. It's the story of a mountainside. Soon the situation changed, lots of lumber mills in range, and logging was how men made their way. Such demand for wood, soon barely a tree stood when rain fell down from skies of gray. Turns out the trees, they made the hill, loose mud just won't stay still, and pretty soon it all began to slide. It's the story of a mountainside. Fertile hilltops turned to stone, but the second growth had grown. Decades passed and corporations came. Some people tried to tell this would not end well, but when profit rules, it's always the same. There's no valley that's too deep, there's no hill that is too steep, no regulators' pockets can't be plied. It's the story of a mountainside. Once the hill was cut and flayed, there were still profits to be made by selling land to folks to live out in the country. With the river still so pretty and there just north of the city, go raise your kids in rural harmony. It was the last place they would go, the last home they'd ever know, when the hill collapsed and half the village died. It's the story of a mountainside. It's the story of a mountainside.
So, the track number 5 is Mitch Daniels. I first heard from the Zinn Education Project, which is a wonderful, website, bookstore, email list, etc. that keeps people updated on various dates in history, and is named after the great historian Howard Zinn. So an Associated Press reporter was researching something else and came across in publicly available emails of the former governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels, came up with emails that made it very clear that Mitch Daniels had been involved with a campaign to remove the books of Howard Zinn from the shelves of libraries throughout the state of Indiana. And I heard about this from the Zinn Education Project's list. Bill Bigelow here in Portland, and maybe I guess a year ago it was, and then I started working on a song about that, and I didn't really finish the song until last month, and thus it went onto the album.
Mitch Daniels was the governor of Indiana. Now he is the president of Purdue. But back when he was governor, he asked his staff to look into what they might be able to do. He said, now that this old man has kicked the bucket, can we finally stop taking it on the chin? Can we find an excuse, whatever one will work, to ban all the books of Howard Zinn? I want to ban them, he said, from the libraries. I want to ban them from each curriculum. Ban them from the grade schools, ban them from the high schools, ban them from each college syllabi. And quietly the books started disappearing. They're in the heartland of the free. But oops, now we know, 'cause his emails are public and were discovered by a reporter from AP. They're banning books in Indiana. The governor wants to censor what you read because a patriotic history of half-truths and lies is all the history you need. The story hit the presses at least a bit, and Mitch Daniels then denied the truth, which is funny because that's just like the diet of nonsense Mr. Daniels would feed to the youth. American democracy is the best in the world, and everything is going according to plan. And any pesky historians who want to expose that crap, it's time to burn and censor and ban. They're banning books in Indiana. The governor wants to censor what you read because a patriotic history of half-truths and lies is all the history you need. Students can't handle reality. It needs to be bleached and masticated. Red, white, and blue are the colors for Mitch. Shades of gray are far too complicated. Columbus discovered America. It's the world's best democracy, and America always wins. And if sometimes things don't go quite the way they should, Jesus will forgive our sins. They're banning books in Indiana. The governor wants to censor what you read because a patriotic history of half-truths and lies is all the history you need. They're banning books in Indiana. The governor wants to censor what you read because a patriotic history of half-truths and lies is all the history you need.
Yeah, American democracy, as somebody there at Blue Lion says, that's a good one. Which, yeah, sadly, that we never had much democracy in this country. I think we had a pretty good government for about 2 years in the 1860s, when the radical Republicans were in power, which was incidentally a time when 10 states were not allowed to have anybody in the Congress. And it was a good couple of years, and then the mainstream Republicans took over and destroyed the efforts at a real reconstruction, and it's just sucked ever since. Yeah, Paula says Howard Zinn would like that song. Definitely my idea of a great historian. I don't know. I hope Howard Zinn would like it. He'd probably be embarrassed, and I did a whole lot of different gigs with Howard, and I was never. He's he's a fantastic writer as well as just a brilliant historian, very funny guy and wonderful guy. But he also was just a real artist, and he also wrote plays, and I think part of why his books, his history books, have become so popular is because of his writing style, and I think, I'm not sure if he was ever terribly impressed by my music. I don't remember him ever saying, "Wow, you're a great, songwriter. That was a great song." He was always very nice, but I think I would have remembered if he ever said, "Oh, that's a great song," or something like that. I'm not sure. I think he thought I was a little too direct, but I don't know. And I can always hope that he would have liked some of the more recent stuff, because I don't think we did it. I think the last actual gig I did with him, where he would have heard me sing, was how many years ago? I think it was in Boston, and somewhere around 2000. I don't know what, 6 or 7 maybe. So anyway, another song I sang at the rally yesterday was the following song, track 6 on the album, and it was it seemed relevant. Well, it was more or less, not necessarily to Gaza, but to the West Bank. And it's a song that a wonderful guy named Sam Husseini suggested the hook line. I sometimes send out, not often enough, actually, but on Facebook or Twitter and stuff, I ask people to help me out with a hook line for writing a song on a certain subject. And I really should do that more often, because I've gotten some really good stuff from people that way. And Sam suggested the hook line for this song, and I always say, because I think it's true, that coming up with a good hook line is the hardest part in writing a song. And for me, the rest of it pretty much comes fairly easily if I've got the hook line. And so after Sam provided that, I wrote this song, I think, within a few hours. And it was written at the time that the controversy was somewhat of controversy, at least if you read The Guardian and the internet and stuff, when actor Scarlett Johansson quit her role as Oxfam ambassador in order to take a job as spokesperson for SodaStream, for the Israeli company that manufactures bubbly water machines in the occupied West Bank.
There's a Hollywood star, there's the company, there's the Super Bowl, there's lots of money, there's the stolen land, there's the minimum wage, there's international law, there's the world stage, there's the ambassador, there's the rubbish bin, there's the big contract, there's which one wins, there's the settlements, there's a great big wall, there's the political prisoners, there's the ivory halls, there's the sugary water that fills your cup. But the truth keeps bubbling up. There's Captain America saving the day. There's the American starlet joining the fray. There's the bulldozed homes, there's the tanks in the streets, there's the little children covered in sheets, there's the sugary water that fills your cup. But the truth keeps bubbling up. There's the rivers of blood, there's the manicured hands, there's the fighter jets, there's the baby grands, there's the ancient trees, there's the stolen farms, there's the peaceful protests, there's the force of arms, there's the sugary water that fills your cup. But the truth keeps bubbling up. There's the ever-expanding Zionist state. There's the facts on the ground. There's the sealed fate. There's the kitchen appliance. There's the boycott. There's the haves. There's the have-nots. There's the sugary water that fills your cup. But the truth keeps bubbling up, bubbling up.
So, that's bubbling up, and I'm just reading this interesting conversation in the chat room about what will happen if net neutrality is killed off in terms of personal broadcasting kind of thing, like what I'm doing now. And I'm interested in that. And the darn thing about net neutrality being imminently possibly killed off by the FCC here in the U.S. is that I think me and most other people really don't understand what it all means. Moving on to track number 7. This song I wrote while I was on tour. Didn't finish the song until last month, but I wrote the lyrics a fair while ago, I don't know, a year ago or something. And it's inspired by folks I've known who have hoarding syndrome, and others that I've read about. And one day walking around in the town of a friend who does have hoarding syndrome, I was inspired to write this little ditty.
Sink full of dirty dishes, newspapers all over the floor. Hoover, it broke years ago, it doesn't matter anymore. I don't care. I don't care. Going outside where nobody knows I'm there. I don't care. This couch is like a hammock, you could say it sags. I don't recall the last time I washed this sleeping bag. I don't care. I don't care. Going outside where nobody knows I'm there. I don't care. They say I got a problem, and I think it's true. Spending most of my lifetime being told what to do. Nah, I don't care. I don't care. Going outside where nobody knows I'm there. I don't care. I'm going outside where nobody knows I'm there. I don't care.
And track number 8, The Dam. And this is a song that I wrote last winter, and basically after a few months after I had visited Iceland, and one of the really interesting, inspiring stories I heard about from folks at the house where I was staying there in Reykjavik was about this act of domestic terrorism, the only act of domestic terrorism in Icelandic history, they say, although I'm not sure if that's really true because somebody sank one of their whaling ships. I don't know if that counted, but maybe, the guy who did it wasn't domestic, so maybe that doesn't count. I don't know. But in any case, what they often refer to in Iceland as the only act of domestic terrorism in Icelandic history, it was said to be the beginning of the Icelandic environmental movement in 1970, and it basically began with an explosion, which was, and then a very inspiring story of solidarity and victory in a campaign that preceded the explosion, which is wonderful, I thought, and very worth writing a song about. And then I think sitting around a cafe in Ireland last winter, I wrote these lyrics after searching and fairly frustratingly not finding a whole lot in English on this subject, but I found enough anyway.
Beside a volcano and the rising ash, a crystal river rushing past, a crystal river flowing free, now again like it used to be. Since now the dam is out of sight, blown apart by dynamite, blown apart by everyone in the land of the midnight sun. 100 farmers the next day called the cops so they could say, if you're looking for one to blame. 100 farmers gave their names, said it was I who couldn't just stand idly by. We all knew that sometimes you must commit a crime. There was a blast, a booming sound, and the dam came crashing down. In Reykjavik, voices shrill said the dam should be bigger still. By the Laxa riverside, 100 farms would be washed aside. Legal efforts and protests failed, but they still had air behind their sails. They had air and dynamite, so they gathered round late one night. There was a blast, a booming sound, and the dam came crashing down. Prosecutors tried to choose which farmers had lit the fuse, but not a one would tell the tale, and not one farmer went to jail. The dam was never built again, but many still remember when by the Laxa River they set things right with a couple sticks of dynamite. There was a blast, a booming sound, and the dam came crashing down. There was a blast, a booming sound, and the dam came crashing down. Crashing down.
And track 9 is Eat the Rich, which basically I was staying in Trondheim just a little over a month ago with some wonderful folks in Svartlamoen, and a lovely little community, squatted community in Trondheim, Norway. I'm very fond of, and folks there. We're talking about Bjorn Hugo and folks, Rusha and others. We're talking about the Eat the Rich festival, and which I still have yet to make it to there in Trondheim, that they have in Svartlamoen. But I thought that the festival needed a theme song, so I wrote this one.
They just loll about the stock exchange, counting their net worth. They produce another parasite each time that they give birth. On the finest food and drink, they get fatter every day. So if God has something else in mind, he should hurry up and say, if I were to simply summarize the essence of my pitch, it's time to eat the rich. They take up so much resources and give nothing in return. We subsidize them thrice for every dollar that they earn. Down throughout the ages, all they do is make things worse. It's not a stretch to point out that these people are a curse. It may seem slightly vengeful, but sometimes payback's a bitch. It's time to eat the rich. Some people think they're funny, they follow every tweet. But me, I just get hungry and I want something to eat. Let's be environmentalists, recycle and reuse. Let nothing go to waste, take their mansions and their shoes, their yachts and their airplanes, no need to decide which. It's time to eat the rich. It's time to eat the rich.
Okay, sorry about the dead air there. I just was realizing that I'm missing a song from the list, but I'm going to fix that while the next one is playing, hopefully. I will manage this technological feat. And so moving on to track number 11, somebody was asking earlier who is the man on the upper right of the cover of the album. If you're on Bandcamp, you can look at the cover, and that is Mozambique, who is one of the English men who were held for years at Guantanamo Bay, the concentration camp run by the U.S. military on an occupied section of Cuba, and Mozambique spent years there in terrible circumstances after a year in a windowless cell in the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, during which time he quite likely heard the Pakistani female scientist Afia Siddiqui being tortured by the military in another room, and she is currently held in Texas in a prison, the same one that also holds my friend Marius Mason. But Mozam is currently in prison on no charges, as far as I've heard. It's since last March, I believe, was when he was arrested in England after coming back from a trip to Syria, where he has been involved with humanitarian aid projects, as he has often been over the years in many different countries. And not too long after he was released from Guantanamo due to popular pressure from primarily in England and sent back home to Birmingham, I met Mozam in Belfast, and we had a really amazing time together with a whole bunch of other people, mostly former hunger strikers and former prisoners from the nationalist community in Ireland. And when I heard about Mozam's arrest recently, when I was in Britain, I wrote this song.
Mozam learned so young as a kid in Birmingham what it's like to lose most everything. He was only 6, just a few years from the pram, when he discovered all the pain that life could bring. His mother died so young, maybe that's where it began. But when he grew up, he'd travel far and wide. He went off to Bosnia and Afghanistan. For Mozam there was no other side. When the U.S. war began, he was taken in a raid, held for a year in a windowless cell. He heard the men around him beaten, he heard women fleed. Where they'd take him next, he had no way to tell. Guantanamo Bay, 3 years in a cage, 3 years apart from his young son. 3 years of torture at every single stage. No charge, no trial for him or anyone. But Mozam's only crime was helping people in places most others fear to go. Mozam's only crime was helping people and bearing secrets some folks don't want you to know. 3 years of campaigning for release. Sent home to live 'neath England's cloudy sky. The screams that ring out in his head can never cease. Left to live his life and wonder why. But the years passed by and the wars they ravaged on, and it wasn't long before he knew. With the hundreds of thousands dead and gone, he had to find out if there was something he could do. But Mozam's only crime was helping people in places most others fear to go. Mozam's only crime was helping people and bearing secrets some folks don't want you to know. He came back home from burying the dead and was arrested on a terror law. There was no question in his head. He had to tell the world what he saw. Such as the fact that his government kidnapped men and sent them to be tortured by Assad. And this is why they've arrested him again. And this is why I say in the name of God, Mozam's only crime was helping people in places most others fear to go. Mozam's only crime was helping people and bearing secrets some folks don't want you to know. Bearing secrets some folks don't want you to know. Bearing secrets some folks don't want you to know.
And yeah, it's kind of a you could say the perhaps the very definition of a somewhat complicated issue here, because of course you can be opposed to imperial meddling in Syria and as well as opposed to Islamist people, some of them who are pretty off the wall, and as well as being supportive of aiding civilians who are terribly affected by the whole crisis. And I wonder if some of the maybe lack of support for Mozam compared to when he was in Guantanamo is related to people being uncertain about where to come down on this question, like if they are supportive of Mozam, what does this imply in terms of their position on the Syrian conflict and stuff like that? I don't know, but he's a great guy, and he I'm quite certain he was not going to a jihadist training camp. But the funny thing about it is that if he was, then he was training with jihadists that the British government supports. So it's all a bit strange. Moving on for now to track number 12, Invisible Man. It's a song that I wrote one day wandering around downtown Portland with Reiko and other folks, and seeing just the constant common scene that is there involving the many, many homeless people in this city and how they are related to by much of the general public. And so this is one of the songs on the album that I actually wrote a while ago, like a year or so ago, but it didn't make it onto the albums that I recorded last year, and I thought it should go onto this one.
Once he had a family. Once he was someone's little boy. He even went to high school in Carbondale, Illinois. He had a job for years before he lost it and fell through the cracks. If he tries looking for one now, people turn their backs. That's his home there on the sidewalk. Now he gets by as best he can. He talks to people as they walk by, but they don't listen. He's just one more invisible man. He used to go out clubbing. Now and then he'd even score. But that was in another lifetime, so long before he was evicted, back when he could pay the rent, when he had friends that he could count on, before he packed it up and went, headed to the West Coast, became best friends with a can. He talks to people as they walk by, but they don't listen. He's just one more invisible man. He dreamed of buying a house once. He dreamed of being someone's groom. Now he dreams of a hot breakfast and a sleep in a dry room. But he'll settle for some food stamps. He'll settle for another beer. He'll settle for a bus pass to somewhere south of here. But for now he'll sit there on the sidewalk, try to come up with a plan. He talks to people as they walk by, but they don't listen. He's just one more invisible man. One more invisible man. One more invisible man.
And I was in Copenhagen playing at the wonderful punk rock venue Bumsen, and in the Nørrebro district of Copenhagen, and somebody there was telling me about this sun tax that was happening in various places, and he including in Oklahoma, and he sent me an article about what was happening in Oklahoma, and I did a little more reading about that, sitting around in a cafe in Germany, and wrote this song.
They claimed they were all for fairness and for keeping the market free. They were all about competition against all subsidy. They're opposed to raising taxes wherever they may be, except in certain cases, such as when the oil industry feels threatened by entrepreneurs trying to get something done. So now it's time to tax the sun. They say they're all for individuals pursuing worthy goals, except ones that might cause industry to dig up less coal. So the politicians voted and almost all agreed there was no need for debate before they did the deed. No need for gridlock now, united almost everyone. Now it's time to tax the sun. Serving people's interests is the politician's goal, especially certain people who like digging giant holes, like very wealthy businessmen with names like David Koch. Concerned extractive industries might soon be going broke. One more solar panel, then the terrorists have won. So now it's time to tax the sun. They say they can't give cheaper access to the electric grid, although we don't all use it now as some of us once did. Although we make it cheaper for everybody else by putting up these turbines and those solar cells. There may be lots of benefits, the downsides may be none, but now it's time to tax the sun. There may be a climate crisis, the lights may all go dark, all the scientists agree. The situation's stark if we're heading toward the wall. Speeding down the tracks, the solution to the problem must surely be a tax. Wanna make things better, they'll have you on the run. Now it's time to tax the sun. Now it's time to tax the sun.
Yes, solar terrorism, indeed. So I got the other song that I was missing loaded up now, and so just moving backwards temporarily to track number 10. It's a song about, while I was on the way to Ireland last January, I saw a wonderful movie on the plane called Fruitvale Station, and I wrote the song sitting there in the dark while most everybody else was sleeping. And it's about a subject which I was familiar with before seeing the movie, but the movie was beautiful. And it's about a young man named Oscar Grant who was killed by the police by the BART police in Oakland, California, the Bay Area Rapid Transit Cops. And it set off a movement for justice, as well as some of the most significant riots that California had seen since the early 90s. And this is a song for Oscar Grant.
There was a man who had a little girl. She was his one and only daughter. Not every oyster has a little pearl, but this one did. They lived by the water on the eastern side of San Francisco Bay, where the mountains meet the ocean. Together there they would greet the day by Fruitvale Station. Now the trains seem louder than they used to be, there by the Oakland ocean side. When you look out at the horizon now, what do you see since the day your daddy died? He dropped her off at school for the day, looked for work, tried to make some money. Obstacles, roadblocks in the way. In this land of milk and honey, Dad and Mom went out one winter night. Their only plan to greet the new year, fireworks and blunts, it's only right till 2009 was here. They were coming back from the celebration on a train that rode beneath the rising tide. They got off at Fruitvale Station on the day your daddy died. They just wanted to go home and go to bed. They stepped off the train onto the platform. Punches thrown, angry words were said. Then came the men in uniform. Face down, cuffs behind his back. No way to fight or run. That's the time the cop chose to attack. That's when he fired his gun. Prayers were prayed as the sun rose, and how his mama cried. Time stood still and the world froze on the day your daddy died. On the day your daddy died.
So I guess this is the next one. Track 14 is another song that I wrote like maybe a year ago that didn't make it onto another album in 2013, but thought I'd put on this one. And it was inspired by a conversation I had with a couple of folks visiting from another country who were genuinely trying to understand what the Americans mean when they talk about the middle class. And I thought, yeah, that's a good one. I'll write a song about that.
The average annual income of the richest 1% is about 700 grand. The average annual income of the poorest 1% is a couple of food stamps and a pile of sand. Smack dab in the middle, 350,000, but that's actually the top 4%. Most everybody else, say, in the bottom 80, is struggling to pay their mortgage or their rent. You who say you're in the middle, I wonder what you mean in the middle of what and what. I'd say you're probably full of something that hopefully soon will be coming out of your butt. I could join you in your fantasy, but I think I'll have to pass and just say welcome to the working class. If you're wondering how you might send your kids to college if your savings is smaller than your debt, if your main mode of transport is an auto or a pickup, not a helicopter or a private jet, if you drive yourself to the supermarket, you know where to find the milk upon the shelf, if you bring the groceries home and then you cook the food all by yourself, if your idea of a night out is ordering takeout and watching a DVD, if your idea of social mobility is the fact that you have broadband and a high-definition TV, you can try to convince me that you're in the bourgeoisie, or you can just stop smoking that grass and let me say welcome to the working class. welcome, welcome to the working class. If half your income's spent on taxes, no second home on a tropic isle, if flying in economy and renting a car is your notion of vacationing in style, if you've never seen the world's 7 wonders and you think you probably never will, because you only get 2 weeks holiday each year and you just don't have the time to kill. If you think because you're employed and have a roof over your heads that you're so very privileged because your kids sleep in separate beds, but you can't afford the rest home for your parents, and it's you who's gotta wipe their asses, well, let me say welcome to the working class. Welcome, welcome to the working class.
And the penultimate song on the album is one that was inspired by Brian's stories about a wonderful woman who I've never met. Brian there in the chat room. They might both be listening. I don't know. But this is a song that I wrote for Judy.
I just wanted you to know, though it's not news to you, you've been the center of my world. My kids sure like you too. Ever since we met, it's been a pleasure to be friends. I know you already know this, but since we hit this bend, I just thought I'd tell you, because it seems only fair that each day's been like St. Patrick's Day in Tiananmen Square. I just wanted you to know that somehow it'll be okay. But for all these years I've treasured waking up with you each day. If this book could be rewritten, if a new chapter could appear, then I'd write it all this instant to make sure you'd stay right here. And I'll thank you for the good times, thanks for the life we share. Each day's been like St. Patrick's Day in Tiananmen Square. I just wanted you to know, as I sit here in this seat, I'm so thankful every day that we had the chance to meet. I just hope we have the chance to see so much more. What marvels these next decades on this earth could have in store. But whatever time we've got no time to spare. Each day's been like St. Patrick's Day in Tiananmen Square. Each day's been like St. Patrick's Day in Tiananmen Square.
there's one more song on the album, and I appreciate all you people out there in cyberspace listening, joining the chat room, and I imagine I'm not the only one who might go watch a little of that final World Cup match when I'm off of this airwave. And if anybody's up there in British Columbia or wants to take a trip up there, if you're from somewhere around the region or whatever, then I'm playing at the Vancouver Folk Music Festival next weekend. And I'll be doing a gig somewhere in Portland via Veterans for Peace benefit at some point in August. That'll be on my website when I know about it. And also playing at a teenage activist training camp near Portland in August. That's at my website, davidrovics.com, if you know any teenage activists in the Northwest. And then I'll be touring all over the U.S. and Canada in the fall. So if anybody's out there in the U.S. and Canada and wants to organize a gig somewhere, let me know. And here is the final track on the album, and which is perhaps the straightest one as well, but it might make sense to some of you out there, like if you are into cricket, but which I'm not, but apparently the song works okay, even if you are. My friend Richie in Oslo is a filmmaker and is working on a film about his own cricket team, which is a cricket team that's seen better days, and they think that if they could get Sachin Tendulkar to come from India, wherever he is, for cricket, to help the Norwegians with their cricket game, they could improve their standing and their game, and it seems like a good idea. And I wrote a song, which at least part of which will be probably appearing in their documentary about their efforts to get Sachin to come help them out. And of course, if you know nothing about cricket or about Sachin Tendulkar, you can always look it up on the web. And thanks again for listening. And if anybody wants to donate to help help me pay for having an airwave here on Spreaker, or anything else for the music, for the studio costs, which have yet to be recouped for recording the album, then feel free to click the donate button at davidrovics.com or the subscribe button. Of course, I already know that many of you listening have already done these things before, but those who haven't, who can, you feel free. And I hope to see you on the road, in the streets, and in cyberspace. Here's Sachin.
Norway is known for many things. One of them most surely is not cricket. When Norway plays international matches, they often end up in a sticky wicket. But Vålerenga was once one of Norway's best teams until it became one of the worst. 18 games played, 16 lost. It seemed that the team was cursed. But the men of Vålerenga have come up with a plan, and now the course is clear. Our hope now lies in convincing Sachin that he should fly up here. We need a blessing from the god of cricket to lift us out of this ditch. We need a blast from the master blaster, then we'll surely have the run of the pitch. Cricket is a sport loved by many, but not many in Norway. So Sachin, if you come up to visit, you can walk around in the middle of the day. No one will recognize you. You don't have to be a superstar. As long as you avoid South Asian restaurants and British or Australian bars. We'll drive you around the mountains. You can ski here if you please. But won't you come up to Norway, Sachin? Land of the brown smoked cheese. We need a blessing from the god of cricket to lift us out of this ditch. We need a blast from the master blaster, then we'll surely have the run of the pitch. Sachin, you've had times of hardship, but mostly you've had success. Maybe we could do that too. At least that is our best guess. If you know how much we love you, Sachin, might that bring you north? Just what might be required to cause you to sally forth and board a plane for Oslo, where you are needed most, in the land of the midnight sun, here by the North Sea coast. We need a blessing from the god of cricket to lift us out of this ditch. We need a blast from the master blaster, then we'll surely have the run of the pitch. We need a blessing from the god of cricket to lift us out of this ditch. We need a blast from the master blaster, then we'll surely have the run of the pitch.